Imagine this. You're sitting at your kitchen table, sorting through bills, rent, taxes, insurance, one lawsuit, and it's all gone. Everything you've worked for. Now picture this. A man in a tailored suit stepping off a private jet onto a strip of sand in the South Pacific. No press, no paperwork, no jurisdiction. His fortune? Untouchable. Not because it's hidden, but because it's protected. There's a legal structure designed to do exactly that. Not in secret, in plain sight, but wrapped in layers so dense even governments struggle to see through them. It's called an offshore trust, and it doesn't just shield money, it buries it beneath laws written by the wealthy for the wealthy. Today, you'll see how the richest families on Earth vanish their fortunes behind legal walls no court can breach. But first, let me show you the island where the rules don't reach. The plane lands without a tower call. The runway is short, surrounded by palms and silence. No cameras, no customs, just a breeze that smells like salt and immunity. Welcome to the Cook Islands. Population 15,000. Power far more than that. On paper, it's a peaceful chain of volcanic atolls in the middle of the Pacific. But for the ultra-rich, it's a fortress, not of stone, but of law. Here, a piece of paper can do what no security guard, no lawyer, no vault can. You sign it, and your assets vanish. Not illegally, legally. That's the trick. Back home, if someone sues you, your accounts can be frozen, your property seized. But once they're inside a Cook Islands trust, they're gone from the system, immune even from U.S. courts. That's not speculation, that's precedent. In 1999, a man in Denver faced a $36 million judgment. He claimed he was broke, but investigators discovered he'd moved his wealth into a Cook Islands trust years earlier. The U.S. court demanded he bring the money back. The Cook Islands said no. Because here's the twist. Under Cook Islands law, even if you want to give the money back, you're not allowed. The trustees control the assets, not you, and they follow their courts, not yours. So what did the Denver man do? Nothing. He couldn't. He served time in jail for contempt. His money stayed right where it was, beyond reach. It sounds extreme, but it's not rare. In fact, it's become routine. There are law firms in New York, Zurich, and Hong Kong that specialize in building these invisible shields. Their clients? Not criminals. CEOs, heirs, politicians, tech founders, people who understand something simple. If you don't own it on paper, it can't be taken from you. This isn't about hiding, it's about detachment. You distance yourself so completely that even if the storm hits, you're not even listed as standing there. A Cook Islands trust isn't just a vault, it's an eraser. You walk in with everything, you leave with nothing, and yet, somehow, you're still in control. But that's just one island. There are others, each one offering a different flavor of invisibility. It looks harmless, almost boring. A few printed pages, neatly bound. No golden seal, no encrypted server, just paper. But that paper, it's a fortress. One that's been perfected over decades, not by criminals, but by legal architects hired by billionaires. At the center of it all is a mechanism so elegant it almost feels like fiction. The offshore trust. To understand its power, you need to understand what it isn't. It's not a bank account. It's not a company. It's not something you own. It's something you give away, strategically, completely, and still benefit from entirely. Here's how it works. You create a trust. You appoint a trustee, often a professional entity in a place like the Cook Islands or Nevis. Then you transfer your assets, cash, real estate, shares, yachts, even intellectual property. The moment that transfer happens, legally, it's no longer yours. And that's the brilliance. Because if someone tries to sue you, tax you, or seize your wealth, your answer is simple. I don't own it. And you don't, not technically. But the trust can still be designed to pay for your lifestyle, your children's education, your private jet, all while keeping your name off every title, every deed, every account. It's the closest thing to having everything while appearing to have nothing. Now compare that to the average citizen. They spend decades building a small portfolio, a house, a retirement account, maybe a second car. Every asset is in their name, every risk fully exposed. One lawsuit, one divorce, one financial hit, and it's gone. But for the billionaire, one document, filed in the right place with the right clauses, and the entire empire becomes untouchable. The trust is structured with precision. It's irrevocable, so you can't change your mind. It names beneficiaries, often your children or a foundation you control. It grants powers to the trustee, but with instructions you've carefully pre-approved. And it includes clauses for distribution, often triggered only by death, age, or other controlled conditions. And most importantly, it's surrounded by layers. Behind the trust, there's usually a shell company. That company holds the assets, not in your name, but under the trust's authority. The company is often registered in yet another jurisdiction. The bank accounts in a fourth. It's not a vault, it's a maze. A maze built not to be hidden, but to be too complex, too expensive, and too legally airtight to challenge. And it works. Judges have called it unreachable. Attorneys have spent years trying to crack it and failed. Governments have passed laws to combat it and lost in international arbitration. Because this isn't fraud, it's design. And the designers? They don't advertise on TV. They work quietly under names like Southpac Trust, Trident Trust, and Asia City Trust. They market to the few, the fluent, the families who've learned that wealth is not about possession, it's about insulation. Still, this raises a question. If it's all legal, why does it feel so hidden? Why don't these structures ever become part of public debate? Why doesn't your accountant mention them? Why do billionaires rarely speak of them, even off record? Because silence is part of the protection, and secrecy is the service. But to understand the depth of this system, you need to see the lives that depend on it, not just the numbers, the stories. No headlines, no police raids, just silence. Because the names behind these trusts don't want fame, they want insulation. And insulation doesn't make noise. Let's begin with a family you've heard of, even if you've never seen them. The Waltons, heirs to the Walmart empire. Estimated combined net worth over $200 billion. Publicly, their wealth appears straightforward: shares, dividends, foundations. Privately, it's shielded by a structure so layered, even financial analysts struggle to map it. Multiple trusts spread across offshore jurisdictions designed to limit tax exposure, avoid probate, and prevent internal disputes. And they're not alone. An executive from a major tech company whose stock exploded post-IPO was advised to move his gains into a trust before they vested. That way, when the money came, it arrived already insulated, lawsuit-proof, tax-optimized. Or take the anonymous billionaire from Florida who faced over a dozen legal challenges from ex-partners and regulators. Not a cent was ever recovered. Every asset, plane, property, portfolio, sat inside a fortress in the Isle of Man, managed by a third-party trustee whose only loyalty was to the clauses in the original trust deed. These aren't rumors, these are patterns. And if you trace the threads, you'll find the same hands weaving the fabric. Trident Trust, Southpac, Asia City, names you've probably never heard, but in the world of high-end asset protection, they're institutions. They operate from discrete buildings in Jersey, Singapore, the Bahamas. No signs, no open doors. Their websites don't boast, they whisper. What do they offer? Bespoke trust structures, offshore entities, corporate nominees, confidential banking, and above all, legal distance. Because when someone comes looking for your assets, it's not enough to have a lawyer. You need an architecture. An architecture where no single door leads to anything, where every layer redirects, delays, or disappears into the next. That's how you protect $50 million in real estate from a divorce settlement, or $300 million in shares from inheritance tax, or even $5 million from a medical malpractice suit. To the untrained eye, it looks like wealth vanished, but behind the curtain, it's simply rerouted. Even celebrities have used these structures, musicians, athletes, politicians. Never directly, always through a team, always through a trust. One case involved a pop icon with over $100 million in intellectual property. As lawsuits mounted, everything, from royalties to real estate, was quietly moved offshore. Not to hide income, to isolate risk. Because that's the game. Ownership is exposure. And the ultra-rich learned long ago that to stay rich, you have to stop owning. The public sees yachts and jets, but legally, those assets belong to shell companies owned by trusts, governed by trustees, answerable to no court outside their jurisdiction. It's a choreography, a dance of signatures and clauses, played in silence. But every dancer knows the steps because they've paid for the map. And here's the part most people never learn. These tools aren't illegal. They're available, just not to you. Because unless you have millions to move, firms like Trident won't return your call. Unless your assets are global, Southpac won't schedule a meeting. Protection exists, but only for those already inside the gates. And once you're in, the system protects you better than any army. But the real question is, how is this possible? How do laws allow this? To answer that, we need to look at the jurisdictions themselves. The places where power isn't enforced by muscle, but by paperwork. The brilliance isn't in the hiding, it's in the building. Because the offshore trust isn't just a tool, it's an environment. One engineered by nations that saw a different kind of opportunity. Not in tourism, not in trade, but in secrecy. Enter Nevis, Belize, Isle of Man, the Cook Islands. Each a dot on the map, each a legal titan in disguise. These jurisdictions designed laws not to govern people, but to attract money. And they did it with precision. trusts that can't be undone, courts that don't recognize foreign rulings, rules that criminalize anyone who leaks client information, and banking secrecy so tight even investigators hit a wall. In the Cook Islands, if a U.S. court says, "Freeze the assets," the local court says, "We don't care." In Nevis, to even begin a legal challenge, the plaintiff must post a bond of $100,000 up front. In Belize, asset protection trusts are immune from foreign judgments by default. It's not chaos, it's architecture. But the structure itself isn't enough. The power lies in the clauses, written quietly, executed precisely. Some trusts only distribute wealth if the beneficiary isn't under legal threat. Others forbid any disclosure of assets, even to heirs, until specific conditions are met. And almost all include one critical feature, the firewall clause, a line that severs your connection to the trust the moment litigation begins. So if a court orders you to repatriate the money, you legally can't. You're no longer in control. And that's exactly the point. Because the further you are from ownership, the safer you are from exposure. It's not about hiding, it's about vanishing, on paper, by design. This wasn't built overnight, and it wasn't built for you. The offshore trust system isn't a loophole. It's a language, spoken fluently by those who helped write it. Decades ago, as global capital grew faster than borders could contain, the ultra-rich saw the future. They didn't lobby for protection. They built it. Laws were drafted not by governments alone, but by private firms, experts in tax, inheritance, asset shielding. Their white papers became legislation. Their templates became statutes. The result? A parallel system, where the rules are written in fine print, enforced offshore, and shielded by plausible legality. And while you file taxes, sign mortgage documents, and prepare wills, they sign deeds that erase risk. To the average person, law is a boundary. To the elite, it's a canvas. And that's the illusion, that we're all playing the same game. We're not. Because when your wealth is exposed, you play defense. But when it's protected by trusts, nominees, and island courts, you don't play. You watch. And if things go wrong, you walk away clean. No names on the account, no assets in the country, no leverage to seize. And so the system sustains itself, not by hiding in darkness, but by thriving in complexity. By the time you notice, it's already vanished. And maybe that's the most revealing part. This isn't just a story about billionaires. It's a story about the rules they were never meant to follow. The question is, now that you've seen the map, what will you do with it? In a dark room, a vault stands open, empty, silent, spotless. Not because it was never filled, but because what once lived there has already moved, somewhere offshore, out of reach, out of sight. And as the camera pulls back, you see what's left behind. Not evidence, just absence. Because the real power isn't in what they hide, it's in how they disappear, legally, perfectly, permanently. You were never supposed to see this, but now you have. And once you see the architecture, the illusion of the system starts to crack. Not with a crash, but with a whisper.